I have some opinions on firearms I would like to perhaps voice. Most of them you have probably heard before already. I have a list of things to talk about, in no particular order though. The first thing is debunking lies from both the left and the right. So basically the pro-gun people and the anti-gun people. The first thing is that when, like, Democrats say they call things like AR-15s assault rifles, and then conservatives say, actually, it's not an assault rifle because an assault rifle is fully automatic. I mean, technically, yeah. Technically, that's true. But let's be real. It's basically an assault rifle. It basically is. It's literally an M4, except without the auto sear. It's just really dumb to say, oh, it's not an assault rifle because it's only semi-automatic. It's like, technically, okay, whatever. But, like, nobody's thinking that. We all know that it's an assault rifle. Just because you're firing in semi-automatic doesn't mean it's like, it's now a sporting rifle or a hunting rifle or some shit. It's a carbine, bro. It's literally it's an M4 that's semi-automatic. That's what it is. But I also think it's dumb because why would you downplay the grade of firearm it is? We want to have military grade firearms. In fact, we want to have better firearms than the military. That's the whole point of the Second Amendment, is so that we can fight the military. So to sit there and be like, actually, it's not an assault rifle. Well, maybe it should be an assault rifle. Maybe we want assault rifles. Wouldn't you want an assault rifle? Why would you want to fight the military who has assault rifles with, I don't know, if you're going to call it not an assault rifle, what are you going to call it, a sporting rifle? So what, you're saying you want to fight the military with sporting rifles? That's the whole defense of the Second Amendment, is that it's to fight the military. So to sit there and be like, actually, it's not a military rifle, haha, it's a civilian rifle. It's supposed to be a military rifle. That was the point. Next is this shit about mass shootings. There's a website called the Gun Violence Archive that Democrats use all the time to be like, there's 600 mass shootings in America per year. Well, the problem is, Gun Violence Archive has a really, really stupid definition of a mass shooting. Their definition of a mass shooting is 4 or more victims shot, either injured or killed, not including the shooter. That's their definition. And this is really stupid because there could be a gang shootout where 2 gangs fire 1 bullet at each other and 4 people end up getting injured. And then they throw this into the mass shooting incident data. And nobody who hears the word mass shooting thinks of a couple of retards fighting each other on the streets. They think of some asshole walking into a Walmart and killing people indiscriminately. Or perhaps discriminately. But still, shooting strangers, right? In a public space. So if you actually use a smarter definition of a mass shooting, you get data like this. So the definition they use is this: 647 mass shootings, and 673 were killed in these mass shootings. So we're talking about, it's like 1.1 deaths or something average per mass shooting, according to the Gun Violence Archive. And this is this is a very commonly cited source for mass shootings. They're like, there's 600 mass shootings a year. But actually, if you make the definition of a mass shooting more reasonable, so if we, instead of counting 4 or more killed or injured anywhere with any motivation, we get this high-ass number. But if you use a more obviously correct definition, then you get something like 12 mass shootings per year, or even 7, and with somewhere between 48 and 140 killed per year. If we use the definition of 4 or more killed in a public place with an indiscriminate motivation, basically not armed robbery, not gang violence, and not domestic violence. Because no one who hears there was a mass shooting recently thinks, oh, was it an armed robbery? Was it gang violence? Was it domestic violence? No, no, no. Nobody attributes the term mass shooting to gang violence or robberies or domestic violence, ever. No one does it. No one thinks of those things when they hear the term mass shooting. They think of some psycho walking into a mall or a school and killing a bunch of people. That's what they think of. You know it. And then there's this shit about the Second Amendment. The interpretation of the Second Amendment. Democrats will try to spin the definition of the Second Amendment to try and infringe on what it actually meant, when really the definition is quite simple. It is this: a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So the kind of shit Democrats do is they'll read this and they'll be like, oh, they're talking about arms like what a person has. They're talking about arms instead of firearms. Obviously, they're talking about firearms. Or they'll look at the word regulated and they'll be like, oh, they meant that it has to be heavily regulated. No. Regulated means like well organized. At least it did back in the day. But you've all heard that. If you've even done even an ounce of research, you will know that that's what that means. And they say, well, actually, you have to be part of the militia to have a firearm. Okay. We are the militia. That's who we are. It is talking about the people. Do you really think they're talking about like the National Guard? When has any government ever written a constitution that gives the government a right to do something, especially the military? Never. It doesn't happen. That's not what it means. That's fraud, and they know it's fraud. They just want to use an excuse. They know it's fake. And then of course it says shall not be infringed. It's already been infringed on. Of course, it's been infringed on since the 1930s with the NFA, and then the Gun Control Act, and then the Hughes Amendment, and then Bill Clinton's shitty little bill that has since expired. Everyone sort of knows what the Second Amendment means. It's just that these people don't like the Second Amendment as it stands. They don't like the Second Amendment. They want it gone. And they spin the meaning of the Second Amendment to try and use that as an excuse to infringe upon it. They know what they're doing. They know. They know that it's supposed to be guns that the civilians use to fight the government. They know it. Everyone knows it. But they don't care. They make an excuse to say, actually, they're being purposely obtuse. That's what they're doing. Purposely obtuse. Don't even entertain it. We all know what it means. We all know what the Second Amendment is all about. The really only question is, should we keep the Second Amendment? They know that they're not going to straight up get rid of the Second Amendment. They know that's never going to happen. So they try to look for little ways to pick at it, to test the waters of infringing upon the Second Amendment, as they have for so long. Anyway, then there's this other lie, I think, that conservatives say is, well, if you ban guns, criminals are just going to get them anyway. In a small way, this is sort of true. In America, it's definitely true because we already have so many guns that it's just impossible to remove them from circulation at this point. This would be true for a different country like Europe. I mean, obviously in Europe, pretty much all the violent crime is with like knives. Very occasionally, you'll see someone get shot by like a shotgun or something. Almost never do you see anyone get shot with like an assault rifle, like an AK. That happened like once, like 8 years ago in France, where a bunch of Muslims shot up like a theater or something. They smuggled in some Zastavas. I don't know how. But generally speaking, banning guns does keep them out of the hands of criminals. Generally speaking. Let's not pretend it doesn't. In America, it probably would be a different story because there's already so many guns at this point that even if you did ban guns, it probably wouldn't matter. At least not for a long time. There's already so many guns in circulation that even if, I mean, the criminals are obviously not going to turn their guns in, obviously. And we see it, I mean, you look at Chicago where it's heavily gun controlled, and it's like one of the worst places for gun violence. It's one of the worst because criminals just smuggle them in from other places where it's legal. But I mean, this idea that like, oh, they'll just get their guns from the black market. Not really. I mean, do you know where to go to find the black market? I don't think so. Probably not, right? You pretty much never just see people in Europe or Asia getting shot up by Glocks ever. So there is some truth to the idea that if we banned guns, gun violence would drop. That is sort of true. If this were not America. In America, it would take a long, long time to see any of that take effect because there's so many guns in circulation, as I said. Take a really long time. You'd have to be pulling guns out of circulation for a very long time before you saw any real effect of banning the guns. And then there's this other lie that conservatives say, which is, it's actually just a .22 caliber round. It's not even a powerful round. It's a weak round. It's .22. Okay, that's really, really dumb. I mean, it's like saying if you were to shoot a slingshot at somebody with like a rock. It's like if you were to say that is more powerful than launching a piece of sand at the earth at light speed. The kinetic energy, the velocity, is a huge part of the power. The diameter of the bullet does not determine how powerful the cartridge is. There's way more powder behind a .556 round than there is behind a .22 long rifle little pea shooter bullet. Way more power, and you know it. Don't lie about that shit. I hate when people lie. I don't care if you're conservative or liberal. Don't try to lie. Don't try to take shit out of context. Don't do it. Let's be honest here. A .223 is objectively way more powerful than a .22 long rifle. Yeah, sure, it's the same diameter, but the bullet is way longer, and there's way more powder behind it. So that's a couple lies that people say. This next thing is my opinion on guns. At this point, it should probably be obvious. I like guns. I think they're useful. And I think the biggest purpose they, of course, serve is resistance against a tyrannical government, as it was originally meant. And I will address some counters to this later on. Very, very shortly, I will address some counters. But of course, I think it's good for fighting a tyrannical government. That's what we did in the Revolutionary War. And of course, it is good for self-defense. In other countries, you go to prison for defending yourself, which is outrageous. Like in Britain, you're not even allowed to own pepper spray. You're not even allowed to own pepper spray. You can't do it. So all these jihadists walk around stabbing everyone up, and it's like, what? I mean, you gonna arrest him for carrying a knife? He's already stabbed someone by the time he has. Why don't you at least give poor old John and Jane some pepper spray or something? You jerks. What's wrong with you? What is the point of making pepper spray illegal? That doesn't make any sense at all. Not even the cops carry guns in Britain and other parts of Europe. They carry tasers. Tasers are notoriously unreliable. So, some dude is coming at you, dual-wielding some hatchets. And what do you got? You got a taser and your prayers. So you fire a taser at him, hoping to God that it takes him down. And then, of course, oh, this guy has a particularly thick jacket, so it doesn't do shit, and he cleaves you to death. Gee, thanks, government. I'm sure glad I don't have a weapon. I'm so glad, bro. No. Dumb. So, of course, having that gun gives you a chance to actually defend yourself. And let's say some dude burglarizes your house, and he has a hat and he has a machete. What are you supposed to do? Run? Like, we're just cowards now? We're pathetic cowards? We can't even defend our own homes? We just have to let the criminal take our shit? Rape our daughter? Fuck that. So in conclusion, I think guns are mainly good for resistance or even perhaps deterrence against a government being tyrannical, and then of course just basic self-defense. And then of course the other fun things like hunting and sport shooting. That's all good and dandy. But now this brings up another question. Who should own the guns? Like, do we want to give out guns to schizos and criminals and the crazy people? No, probably not, right? So, right now, we have background checks, but as far as I know, they don't apply to mentally ill people. However, if you want my opinion, I don't think we should have background checks for criminals at all, actually. What I would do is, if someone commits a crime and they go to prison, I would not let them out of prison until they have been proven to be rehabilitated. If they have not been proven to be rehabilitated, why would we let them out? If felons cannot be trusted with their basic rights, such as owning a firearm and voting, then like they cannot be trusted among the general populace to own a firearm. Why would we let them out of prison? That's so dumb. So, keep criminals in prison until they've been rehabilitated. Take as long as it takes. If they can't be rehabilitated, keep them in there forever. There's no point in letting out psychos and recidivists and repeat offenders. It's pointless. Eventually, they'll just get shot by police, or they'll kill somebody and get arrested and go to prison for life after they've already committed 20 felonies, as we've seen so many times before. So, I would say, if someone gets a felony conviction, then they go to prison, get rehabilitated, and then you release them. Full rights and all. No background checks, not even for employers. Don't even let employers do background checks. However, if they commit a second non-consecutive felony, and then they get convicted a second time, then just keep them in prison, honestly, because there's no helping them at that point. If you're just gonna sit there and go back to prison your whole life, just stay in there. There's no point in letting you out. Keep them forever. Otherwise, I don't think we should be taking rights away from people who actually have been rehabilitated. Like there are some felons who are actually normal people now, and they should be given their rights back. And now there are some counters. As I mentioned earlier, there are some counters to these points. Some of them are sort of valid, but some of them are not so valid. The most obvious counter is like, oh, you think you're gonna fight the government with your little AR-15? The government has tanks. The government has jets and nukes. Why don't you explain to me how that worked out for the US government when they invaded the Taliban and they invaded Vietnam? Why don't you explain that to me? Why don't you explain how well the US government fights insurgencies? Did we win those wars? Did we win the war in Afghanistan? Did we win the war against Vietnam? No! What? I thought tanks and drones and jets win wars, especially against insurgents who all they have is sandals and SKSs and AKs and Mosin Nagants. You mean to tell me that after 20 years, we couldn't wipe out a couple of cave dwellers with dirty, sandy AKs from the 70s? And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why it doesn't work like that. Tyranny does not necessarily mean you're just there to wipe everybody out. You're not just there to kill everyone, genocide them all, and nuke them. Do you think German-occupied France just got, blown up? They just they just blew up every building in the whole place. You think that's what happened? They just leveled everything and killed everyone in France when they took it over. Is that what you think happened? Do you really think that's what happened? It's not. A big part of tyranny is trying to enforce tyrannical laws. So let's say tomorrow the government said, all right, no more computers. No more computers allowed. No more cell phones. No more desktops. No more laptops. Nothing. You gotta hand it all in. And then the government starts coming around to everyone's house to collect the laptops. What do you think they're gonna send in? Do you think they're gonna send in a tank to roll into your house and collect your computer? Is that what you think happens? Are you nuts? Do you think a tank is gonna roll through your house and search for contraband? No. Tanks are for destruction, not enforcing bullshit laws. Do you think they started a revolutionary war because the British were just mowing everyone down, blowing everyone's house up? No, they did it because they were doing shit like taxes, ridiculous taxes like the tea tax, and overall bullshitting. Here's a paragraph from 4chan. I don't know the source, but this is a paragraph from 4chan. You cannot control an entire country and its people with tanks, jets, battleships, and drones, or any of the things that you so stupidly believe trumps citizens' ownerships of firearms. A fighter jet, tank, drone, battleship, or whatever cannot stand on street corners and enforce no assembly edicts. A fighter jet cannot kick down your door at 3 a.m. and search your house for contraband. None of these things can maintain the needed police state to completely subjugate and enslave the people of a nation. Those weapons are for decimating, flattening, and glassing large areas and many people at once, and fighting other state militaries. The government does not want to kill all of its people and blow up its own infrastructure. These are the very things they need to be tyrannical assholes in the first place. If they decided to turn everything outside of Washington, D.C. into glowing green glass, they would be the absolute rulers of a big, worthless, radioactive pile of shit. Police are needed to maintain a police state, boots on the ground, and no matter how many police you have on the ground, they will always be vastly outnumbered by civilians, which is why, in a police state, it is vital that your police have automatic weapons, while the people have nothing but their limp dicks. But when every random pedestrian could have a Glock in their waistband, and every random homeowner an AR-15, all of that goes out the fucking window because now the police are outnumbered and face the reality of bullets coming back at them. I couldn't have said it better myself, really. I couldn't have. This idea that we could never fight the tyrannical government with our dinky little AR-15s. Really? Come on. Why don't you tell me what they're fighting each other with in Ukraine right now? AKs. They're fighting each other with AKs in Ukraine. Do you think if the only thing that wins a war is tanks and jets, that they would be sending out infantry? Why don't you explain to me why they're sending infantry out to war if you can win a war with tanks, jets, and nukes? Why don't you explain to me why so many Ukrainians, why so many soldiers in Ukraine are getting blown up by drones who are dropping frag grenades on them? Why do militaries even still manufacture small arms if they're just so useless for fighting other militaries? If it's so useless and pointless in a war to fight with small arms, Why are they still using them? Explain. Why do we not only see tanks and jets and nukes on battlefields? Dumb. And it would be especially harder if the people you're fighting are in your own country, amongst your own people. You can't even tell who's a combatant or not. So, like, what? Are you gonna just blow up every house in the whole country just on suspicion that they might be a rebel? Okay, you have no country left. Congratulations. Congratulations, dude. I'm so glad. Like, these people, they don't even think. They're like, oh, you can't fight a tyrannical government with an AR-15. Yeah, you can, bro. What are you talking about, dumbass? And what's funny is, if you go to these people who are anti-gun, and you say, do you think civilians should own guns? And they say, no. You say, who do you think should enforce that law of civilians not being allowed to own guns? And they'll say, well, the government, of course. And then you say, you trust the government? And they'll say, no. Or they'll say, you don't need guns. The police will protect you. And then you say, I thought you didn't trust the police. Because as you saw in 2020 with all the BLM riots and ACAB and whatever, they hate police. They don't think police are good. So who do they think, like, they hate police, but then they want to disarm the civilians? Huh? You think the police are tyrannical and systemically racist. So, in response, you want to hand over your form of defense against said police. Genius, dude. You're so smart, bro. A couple other small things about debunking idiots who are anti-gun is they'll say, oh, we have to ban AR-15s. But you know what? Pistols are okay. Well, that doesn't make sense because pistols actually kill way more people than rifles do in America. That's the FBI statistics. Right here. Handguns kill 6,000 plus people a year, and rifles kill like 200 people a year. More people die to knives and blunt objects than die to rifles. And yet, their first instinct is to ban the rifles. Because to be fair, it's the scariest one. Like, if you were to face up against any one of these, the last one you would want to face up against is going to be probably the rifle. Unless we're talking about, like, really short distance, then probably the shotgun. But if let's say, 100 meters, obviously you're going to talk about the rifle. The rifle is the scariest one on this list. But it's not the most dangerous. And there's a reason for that. It's because everything else on here is much more concealable. It's a lot easier to hide a gun in your pants, or a knife, or a club, or whatever. I mean, no one's walking around with AKs, right? And if they are, if you see someone openly carrying a rifle, they're not there to hurt you, bro. That's some 2A activist exercising his right, trying to get some attention, which is fine, whatever. But yeah, I mean, if we're talking about saving lives, the first thing we're going to ban is not rifles. It's going to be knives or pistols, okay? On top of that, more people die from falling down or from car accidents than they do from firearms. So, like, if we want to save lives, wouldn't we ban cars? Wouldn't we ban cars first before banning guns? Cars are just convenient. They don't want to ban cars because they're convenient. But they'll say, oh, but cars aren't designed to kill people. Guns are designed to kill people. It's like the bearer of the tool decides what the tool is for. I mean, are we gonna ban kitchen knives? Like, do we leave kitchen knives alone but ban machetes because machetes are scary? What about this? Do we ban this? Oh, but that's just Grandpa's old hunting rifle. We don't need to ban that. Actually, This actually is a weapon of war. This is the most mass-produced weapon of World War II. This has killed more people than an AR-15 ever has. But no one's screaming to ban this. So it's like, if I wanted to kill a bunch of people, I could go rent a U-Haul and go drive through downtown New York and kill way more people than I ever could with an AR-15 at a mall. And we've seen it happen. In France, I think it happened in a place called Nice or Nice. This dude got a big-ass truck and ran over like 80 people and killed them all. Other tools kill way more people than guns do in mass casualty events. Bombs, cars. And if we want to talk about mass shootings, the chance of you dying in a mass shooting in America is comically low. In fact, I have the number right here. Your chance of dying in a mass shooting in the United States is 0.00034% per year. Extremely low. Comically low. You're way more likely to kill yourself, or to get hit by a car, or to fall on your head than you are to get shot in a mass shooting, if we use a proper definition of a mass shooting. But even if you use the stupid-ass definition of a mass shooting, it's still the case. You're still extremely, extremely unlikely to die from a mass shooting. And then there's the argument of high-capacity magazines. It's like, do you think that reloading is like a really long process that greatly disrupts the shooter's progress in his shooting spree? Do you really think that's the case? Unfortunately, I think YouTube has rules about showing, like, reloading a firearm, so I'm not going to do it. But trust me, it takes like 2 seconds. And don't just take my word for it. There's actually a study on this. This study by Gary Kleck found out that the shooter, even if denied large capacity magazines, could have continued firing without significant interruption by either switching loaded guns or changing smaller loaded magazines with only a 2 to 4 second delay by each magazine. And really, it only takes a couple of seconds to reload a magazine. So, I mean, instead of getting shot by someone with a 30-round magazine, you're getting shot by someone with a 10-round magazine who has 3 of them. Okay, he just has 3 magazines instead of 1. I mean, seriously, it takes 2 seconds to reload with marginal skill. It doesn't even take that much skill. People who are really skilled can do it in like under a second. So that's a dumb point. And then there's the point of like, oh, you don't need an AR-15. Okay. You don't need coffee. You don't need a car. You don't need internet. You don't need a computer. You don't need a phone. You don't need air conditioning. You don't need amusement parks. You don't need TikTok. You don't need anything convenient at all. You don't need any of it, do you? Do you need it? No? You don't need it? Ban it. Ban all coffee shops. Ban all the Starbucks. Ban all the cell phones. Ban all the video games. You don't need them, right? I mean, you'll be alive still. You'll still be alive. The only thing we need are roofs over our heads, food in our stomachs, and water in our stomachs. That's it. That's all we need. And you'll be fine, right? Those are the only things you need. We don't even need toilets, guys. Why don't we just shit in a bucket and throw it out? Throw it outside, right? We don't need plumbing. Who needs that? Who needs it? Ban it. Ban it. Ban plumbing because you don't need it. So the idea of like, oh, you don't need it, so ban it. Dumb. Dumb, dumb, dumb. And then here's a very, very interesting statistic. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'll let you make your own conclusions. But if we look at the demographics, if you know what I mean, of Europe and duplicate them and replace America's demographics with that of Europe, our homicide rate would go from about 5 to about like 1.5, okay? Which is a very similar number to European countries such as Finland and Estonia and Belgium. So, do with that number what you will. I'm not gonna elaborate too much on that. I mean, you can, if you know, you know. And I have a big old list of data here. I guess I'll just read it off. I'm not gonna elaborate too much on this because I don't want this video to be like 2 hours long. But I'll just read off this list. I have a list full of data that I've been collecting over the years. I'm just gonna read this all off, okay? Do with this data what you will. I'm not going to elaborate too much on it. There's just too much to go through. The majority of teen deaths, and I'll drop sources for all of these, by the way. You can check the description for sources. The majority of teen deaths in America are unintentional injuries, not homicide, except for black teens. When you compare the United States to Europe, we actually rank 11th in mass shootings per capita. Use that per capita number. If you have an IQ over, 85, you can figure out ratios and per capita and rates and proportions and whatnot. Anyway, the US ranks 11th compared to Europe in mass shootings per capita. England and Wales have a violent crime rate of 775, while the USA is about 383. So while our murder rate is higher, which it is, and it's probably because of guns, let's be honest. Guns are definitely more lethal. Guns make attacks more lethal. I mean, if you're going to get attacked, the last thing you want to be attacked with is a gun. And America just has more guns than other countries do. That's just a fact. So it's not like there's no consequences of civilian ownership of guns, but the benefits outweigh the negatives, because I'd rather live in a country that has a higher murder rate than live in a country that is subject to the whims of its own government. I'm diverging a little bit from the list, but anyway, I'll go back to it in a minute. Take this quote, for example. This is a great quote. Here it is. If society is honest and historically accurate, the only question that has any relevance to the gun control debate is, do you trust those in government, now and forever in the future, to not take your life, liberty, or property through the force of government? If the answer to that question is no, the gun control debate is over. Really, this is a good question. Honestly ask yourself if you think that our government will forever be a peaceful, never tyrannical government. Forever. Forever, forever, forever. Never, ever, ever will governments go tyrannical. Never, ever. Yeah, sure, they've been going tyrannical for thousands of years, but it's different this time, guys. Come on, believe me. It's different this time. You're dumb. Anyway, back to my list. Murder rates vary drastically between states. For example, Mississippi has a homicide rate of 20.5, while Maine has a homicide rate of 1.6. And this goes back to my demographics argument, by the way. If you know, you know. You can go and look at that data. It adds up with the comparison between America and Europe. It adds up, okay? Do with that information what you will. I'm making no insinuations. I'm just saying. One study shows that there are approximately 1.67 million defensive gun uses per year in the United States. 2.7 times more people die from falling than from firearm homicide. 56% of guns used by criminals are obtained illegally. 54% of gun deaths in America are from suicide. So people like to give this overinflated statistic of how many people die from gun deaths in America, and it often includes suicide statistics, okay? So it's like, if you want to kill yourself, a gun is the easiest way to do it, but there's so many other ways, and banning guns is not going to reduce suicides So there's literally no point in including suicide statistics in that kind of argument. So don't do it. Mass murders only make up 0.2% of homicides. So this goes back to the argument of, oh, we need to ban AR-15s because they're scary. Why? Wouldn't you ban all these other kinds of weapons first, since they're the highest perpetrators? Wouldn't you do that first? If your whole point is saving lives, wouldn't you do that first? But of course not. Of course that's not what they want to do. Their whole appeal is not saving lives. It is emotions. AR-15s are the scariest. They're not the most impactful, but they are the scariest. And Democrats run on emotion. The whole left side of the aisle runs on emotions, okay? Also, only 12% of mass killings are mass public shootings. So a mass public shooting is when you go into a public place and just start shooting people, right? Only 12% of a certain definition of a mass killing is public shootings, is mass public shootings. Also, mass killings other than shootings frequently kill more people than shootings. So this again goes back to the argument of bombs and vehicles, right? Those kill far more people than guns do in mass death events. Here's another statistic. 60% of mass public shooters have a mental illness. We probably should keep guns out of the hands of the mentally ill. We should if someone has a certain mental illness that makes them a lot more prone to committing acts of violence, we should probably put some restraint on that kind of person. We probably shouldn't have that kind of a person just be walking around in society. They should probably be in some kind of mental hospital or on house arrest or something like that, right? It's like a ton of mass shooters have like schizophrenia or something. I think I have a statistic on that. I guess we'll see. The average age of mass shooters is 34.7. So this addresses the argument of like, oh, we got to raise the age to purchase a firearm. It's like, okay, the average age of mass shooters is 34. So that's dumb. Here's a good one. 94% of mass public shootings are in gun-free zones. So that's genius, right? Put up a sign. It's like this meme. Let me find the meme. So it's like this image, right? This is what a gun-free zone is. Like criminals are gonna walk up to a so-called gun-free zone and be like, ah, dang it, no guns allowed. Shit. Frig. Darn it. Ah, let's go home. We can't kill people today. It's not allowed. What? What do you who do you think this is affecting? Who do you think a gun-free zone is affecting? Like criminals? No. And it's like this video right here.
Motherfucker, bruh.
Yuck.
He got me fucked.
Fuck y'all. Let's get to it. Look, homie, we fucking hungry. Hand off the escargot.
Hey, no guns allowed. Read the sign.
Ah, shit.
Where's the...
Ah, shit. No guns? Shit. Darn it, man. Ah, that sucks. No guns allowed? Rats. Like, how is that even... Gun-free zone signs should be illegal, bro. What's wrong with you? You think that's gonna stop a criminal? It's so dumb. Anyway, more down the list. Here's another one. Here's another good statistic. Again, back on the idea of we need to ban assault rifles. 56% of mass shootings are committed with pistols. Pistols. So again, if you want to save lives, you're going to ban pistols before you ban rifles, aren't you? Yeah, you are. But they don't want to save lives. They just want to do what makes people feel better. Oh, I'm so glad that the AR-15s are gone. Also, so back in 1994, when Bill Clinton put in that stupid assault weapon ban bill, they did a study near the end of the the bill's cycle, and they figured out, this is the government, by the way, the government did a study, and they figured out that the assault weapon ban had no significant impact on gun violence. It was basically nothing. So the assault weapon ban basically didn't do shit. Also, people frequently point towards a place like Australia as an example of, oh look, they banned guns, they haven't had a shooting since. Well, actually, it turns out they did a study. They did a study in 2017, and they found this. Australia implemented arguably the most ambitious gun control effort ever attempted, banning all semi-auto rifles and shotguns and pump-action rifles and shotguns, and buying the banned guns already in circulation. Chapman, Alpers, and Jones produced what is arguably the most extensive evaluation, concluding that the measure was a success. In fact, their own data indicated that the effort failed to reduce homicides, suicides, or unintentional firearm deaths. It is questionable whether the effort reduced mass shootings, the problem that had triggered the gun control effort in the first place. So, I mean, you can read this paper yourself, but this is just their conclusion. Their conclusion was that it basically didn't do shit, right? So now they have an unarmed populace who is subject to the mercy of their government. The government does whatever they want to them, right? And they say yes sir, yes sir. And we saw that during COVID. Their government stepped all over them, and they still do to this day. You can get arrested for posting a meme. And Coleon Noir did a good video on why high capacity magazines, or I should say standard capacity magazines, because 30 rounds in an AR-15 is actually standard. It's not high capacity, that's a standard capacity. But anyway, he did a video, pretty good video, on why they're necessary for civilian use. You can watch it if you want. Here it is. This is the video. I'm not going to play it right here, it's like 10 minutes long, but yeah, it's a good video. And I have a statistic here, but let me give you some extra context before I read it off. So Democrats will say we need to ban guns so that children feel safe in their own schools. Conservatives will counter this and say, well, just put metal detectors and armed guards and gates around the schools, right? Naturally. That's literally every other public place in the country. I mean, you go to the airport, you get the same treatment. You go to a concert, they have guards, they have security. Why are we politicians walk around with armed security? Why are we not giving the same treatment to children? Like, why are we treating it like giving security to schools is a bad thing, but everything else is fine? It's fine to put security around everything else, but not schools. That's like a prison. Wah. It's like a prison. We're talking about aesthetics here in an argument about stopping death. We're talking about aesthetics? What's the matter with you? Again, this just proves that they don't actually care about saving lives. They're so dumb. Anyway, I told you that because it turns out that in 1999, this guy went to go shoot up a Jewish community center. He had several targets to choose from. However, several of the targets in question that he was considering had armed guards. Let me show you the data here. Furrow considered attacking 3 Jewish institutions, but the presence of armed guards deterred him. So he proceeded to drive again to this place, which didn't have armed guards, and so he shot it up and killed 1 person and injured 5. Okay, so yes, armed guards actually are a good deterrent, and even if they aren't, they can at least stop an attacker, which we've seen before. We've seen armed individuals stop attackers, such as in that shooting, and I think it was I think Indiana there was a shooting in a mall, and then some dude with a Glock killed him pretty quickly. We can do the same thing with teachers. Let teachers who have like concealed carry permits, let them carry guns. It's not really an issue. We don't need to just hand out guns to teachers. But I mean, if they have their own gun, and then we can let them bring a gun into school. It's not an issue. I mean, it would stop a lot of these deaths, but Democrats don't want it, inexplicably. Anyway, that's my list of reasons, trying to at least attempt to debunk the arguments against it. And I have one more set of thoughts, and this isn't necessarily an argument against gun control. This is just an argument of current forms of gun control are extremely dumb. Observe. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I have an image that proves this point. Take a look at this image. So, we can see, so on the left side is a bunch of legal firearms, right? So it's legal to buy a Glock, it's legal to buy an AR-15, and this thing is technically considered a pistol because what is legally considered a pistol brace has a piece of Velcro on it. So it's not a stock, it's a pistol brace, legally speaking. And what's really dumb is that you can buy this thing when you're 18 years old, but you have to be 21 to buy this. So it's like why? Why are we not allowing people to buy one of these, but we are allowing them to buy one of these when they're 18, but you have to be 21 to buy one of these? Really, really, really dumb. It should just be 18 across the board. You can buy an AR-15 at age 18, but you have to be 21 to buy alcohol, you have to be 21 to buy nicotine, you have to be 21 to buy a pistol. You can actually buy a vehicle at 16, so you can buy a car, which again we've already proven causes far more deaths in mass casualty events than guns do. Anyway, what's really dumb is that if you put like a stock or a grip on a pistol, it suddenly becomes a short-barreled rifle, legally speaking, and then you can go to prison for up to 10 years. So it's like, this thing, illegal, you need to pay a $200 tax stamp, register your firearm, and wait like several months before you can get it. But if you just buy this thing, which has a piece of Velcro on it, now it's perfectly fine. And this, it's like, why are we making this a 10-year prison sentence? Do you honestly think this makes the gun more dangerous? Or this? Do you really think this thing here is more dangerous than this thing is? Is that what you honestly think? It's extremely stupid. It's extraordinarily stupid. So the original reason they made this illegal is because it was supposed to be like a counter to a potential loophole, because back in the 1930s they were going to ban like all pistols completely, and then they included short barrel rifles as a category to prevent people from like using a loophole. But they removed pistols from the NFA, but for some reason they kept in all this other shit, which doesn't make any sense at all. So short barrel shotguns, short barrel rifles, illegal. But what's really dumb is they they didn't include something like this, which literally would have been what they were trying to ban in the first place. So there's literally zero reason for short barrel rifles or short barrel shotguns to be illegal. To be illegal. It doesn't make sense. Automatic weapons and suppressors is more debatable. We can talk about automatic weapons and suppressors, because suppressors arguably make it easier to like commit a crime, supposedly, because other people won't be able to hear what you're doing. But there's a couple problems with that, such as even guns with suppressors are really pretty loud, and also there are other European countries which allow you to own guns. A lot of them actually require, or at least recommend, that you do use a suppressor, because it's quieter. It doesn't make as much noise. It's preferable to not have as much noise. So it's like you have to pay $200 to not go deaf in a self-defense situation. if you're in your house. I don't know. So just to demonstrate how incredibly stupid the law is, something like this is perfectly legal. But if you were to take, I'm going to use this and pretend it's a foregrip, right? If you were to take something like this, a foregrip, right? And, I'm about to become a felon. Perfectly legal, right? This is fine. Oh shit. I'm a felon! I'm a fucking felon! Take me away, boys. I'm a felon. Of course this doesn't detach, it's freaking pepper spray. But if this were a foregrip, the ATF would be raiding my house right now. They would be raiding my house. Anyway, that's all I really have to say. I'll drop sources and whatever in the description. I may make more videos on topics that I have opinions about in the future. I haven't really done that a whole lot other than my video on like Apple products and that time that Coca-Cola made a really dumb training for their employees regarding white people. If you think I missed anything, you can just tell me in the comments and then I'll probably reply to you with my opinion or some data I have or something like that. Anyway, video's over. Thanks.